Hi, I'm Rhiannon Faith, and I'm here to tell you a story, overdue to tell you a story. So, my birthday was a couple of days ago, and I turned 47, and it has been a glorious birthday, a great time celebrating in every way I could think of. And I definitely feel like I've come to a point in life where I'm sort of hitting my stride, if you will. I'm doing the things that I want to be doing with intentionality and becoming more of the person I sort of always envisioned myself to be, where I have the support to do so and the sort of drive to get there, with fewer of the disruptions and distractions that I experienced at other times in my life. And so it's been a really specific and lengthy journey, I would say. But probably the biggest piece of that of late has been my physical health and really focusing on making sure that I am utilizing my body in a more meaningful way, protecting it, taking better care of it, acknowledging that my body is a temple for the Lord. And then, how do I take care of it? If I really appreciate and acknowledge that, how am I going to live my life differently? And so I've been on a 16-week self-imposed health and well-being journey. I started it on August 25th. Things are going really well. And so I'm excited about it. And in another video, I'll share more about that and the why. But with all of this, my birthday got me thinking about the things that I've learned and those sort of nuggets of wisdom, if you will, that I have acquired over life. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes. Well, I guess it'll be more than a few, very likely. As we all know, I can talk and share some of those nuggets of wisdom with you. So some of these are just like not entirely stream of consciousness, but a bit on that train, if you will. So these are some strategies and things that I have come across that I use, and I find them to be very helpful. And I'll share where I learned each of them along the way. I think in life you pick up little pieces. It's like we're sort of a table with a blank space to build a puzzle, and you can either pick up puzzle pieces from others, like take advantage of the knowledge and wisdom that they have. So whether it be from life experiences or just other good things they heard from someone else, you can take those and you can put them into your puzzle, or you can learn everything the really hard way and go through each and every journey for yourself. And I'm a big fan of adopting the wisdom of others. So if they've gone through a journey or experience and they've got a takeaway that is meaningful or valuable, I much prefer to just take that on for myself, use it, appreciate it, embrace it, rather than have to go through that hard journey on my own. And so I've been pretty keen to do that. Obviously, I have made many of the hard choices myself and gone through all of the hard trials that come with them, those hard choices. But definitely not my preference. So most of these are things that I have picked up from others. So the first I want to talk about is HALT. So I had a weightlifting teacher in college, one of my earlier years of college, and she was a recovering addict, and she was really open about the journey she had been on and how she had used fitness to help her to get her life on track, and that was a really healthy outlet for her. She didn't allow fitness to become a different addiction, because I do think that's important to note. I think, sin or addiction or whatever, it's just anything that you're willing to put in front of God. And it can be a good thing, right? You can trade one addiction for another. And you could trade drugs for fitness or nutrition or whatever else. Anything that you allow yourself to become so fixated on that it becomes, an idol or a false god, I think is in the same category. And so good things can also become bad things when they're out of alignment, right? Like, it's good, it has a purpose, but it can't be greater than the other, my opinion, right? Like, you're free to have your own opinion, but in my opinion, those are when you get offline. So there was a pastor from Flood Ministries, Pastor Matt Hammond. He had said, sin is misdirected passion. And I think that's true. You can be passionate about something, but when you allow that passion to be greater than God, you're going to find yourself in a category of sin where you've just gone too far off the rails. And so anyways, this professor, teacher, what have you, weight training instructor, she shared with us a strategy that she recognized was very helpful. So she said she made a lot of bad decisions when she was in one of 4 categories: hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And so that spells halt. So if she found herself in one of those situations, she would stop and pause and meet the need that was missing. So if she was hungry, she would eat something. If she was angry, she would diffuse that anger through one of the many strategies she had deployed. One of my favorites, even going back to when I was a teen, was to physically exhaust myself. So if I was feeling just overwhelmed with emotion and too many thoughts and too much chaos, I would want to go out and run or go to a class or ride my bike or something until I had physically exhausted myself, so I could have greater clarity in my mind, because the physical exhaustion would bring about a sense of at least minimize the chaos, so I could be more clear-headed. If I tried to deal with whatever while I was in that state of anger and hostility, and I had the energy to do so, I could really blow up my world by making statements or taking actions that would be contrary to my best interests and preferences of behavior. And so then if you're lonely, reach out. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, because a lot of times when you're feeling lonely, you just pull yourself in more and more and more and more. But again, this is why this halt is so helpful, because you're putting in place ahead of time, before you need it, a strategy and a plan of what you're going to do when you find yourself in that position. And so if you find yourself feeling lonely, then you reach out. It's just like it becomes a default. The more you work these muscles of behavior, the greater the chances that you activate them when you need them. And then tired, sleep, just take a nap. I've made, I can't tell you how many bad decisions because I was tired. I think my 3 greatest ones for sure is, well, hungry and tired, and anger would be the 3rd, and then lonely would be the 4th. Although, any one of those, they kind of activate that same bad decision making, because your core need is not being met. But if you met that core need, instead of putting yourself in a different situation where you're making compromised decisions because your brain isn't functioning in an optimal capacity, you're going to regret those consequences. You're not going to love dealing with them. So anyways, I loved it. And I so appreciated her willingness to share that wisdom with us, especially as someone who had really put herself in some tough spots as she navigated addiction and then recovery. And so I'm always grateful to her for that. The next is around dealing with stuff, right? So coping strategies being what they aren't necessarily things that you get taught in meaningful capacities. I can't say enough about how peculiar it is that we go to school and we learn all sorts of things, but some of the more fundamental things that we should learn, we don't, right? When I was coming up in school, we learned how to think critically. That's kind of a lost art, apparently, in today's education system. It's far less about learning how to critically think and ask important questions. Like for me, it's ask the next intelligent question. You're faced with a situation. You don't have to know all the answers, but you should know how to ask the next intelligent question. So someone tells me that something's amiss or going on, okay, well then what's the next intelligent question I could ask? And it's not just one, right? There could be a series, and you can continue to develop and move through them conversationally with whatever that person is facing or whatever the consequences of that might be to you. But that seems to have gone by the wayside. With that also is coping skills. Some people pick them up along the way and fill their toolbox of life with resources that they can deploy when things are hard or challenging, and other people continue to walk around with an empty toolbox and frustration that life is harder than they feel like it should be. Coping is part of that. And so I know it's made like a lot of headway around social media over the last whatever, but the stories about the pattern of behavior of bison, which is unique to bison, where they head into the storm. So when cows, they will try to flee the storm. They see a storm coming, they're like, okay guys, let's go this way. The bison, and very unique characteristic to them, they head straight into the storm. And I get why that seems counterintuitive, right? Like, so something you're facing, hitting it head on. So the reason why the bison do this and the outcome of this is that they're in the storm for the least amount of time. They minimize their total exposure to the storm. And I honestly feel the same. When something is coming at me and I hit it head on, and that doesn't mean that I'm coming at it with aggression or a fiery nature, although sometimes that's warranted, but I'm just facing it. I'm dealing with it sooner than later. And let me be clear, this is not necessarily a strategy that I've deployed my whole life. It is not the case. There have been times and seasons where I've tried to put things on the shelf, right? Like a trial comes my way, I'm facing something heavy, and I feel like, well, I can't deal with it right now. I put it on the shelf. And then something else comes up and I put that on the shelf too. But here's what I found. When I do that, eventually the whole bookcase comes flying down on me. And it comes at the most inopportune time, right? Like, I don't have the time or energy to deal with the absolute meltdown my mind and body are going to go through, because I've continued to put things on the shelf as though they were actually going to go away. They're not going to go away. You're just going to get to the point where the bookcase is so heavy that it topples down on top of you. Again, not when you planned it or when you wanted to deal with it. It's just when it happens. And so I have found in most cases, those were the literal most inopportune times. Like, I was trying to encourage my oldest daughter finishing up her bachelor's degree, about just, deal with the stuff as it comes, and be gentle with yourself, because she would, she was struggling with something a couple semesters ago, just like the heaviness. And I was telling her, when I was going through my schooling, I took the hard route, right? I had children while I was trying to finish my bachelor's degree, and my parents had done it. And so I felt this tremendous pressure that, well, if they could do it, I could do it. And I certainly needed to honor them by continuing to press forward. But it was a lot. Going to school full time, many of those times being a single parent, working full time, and I still volunteered and did stuff at church with youth sports, Girl Scouts, other activities, civic activities in the community. I took on a lot because I'd convinced myself that that was what was required. My parents sort of modeled those behaviors, that you would just do more and do more and do more in order to continue to get where you wanted to be. There's nothing wrong with that, except I was way past capacity, emotionally, intellectually, physically. And so I would have a full breakdown at least once a semester for the majority of my bachelor's degree program. And that is not an ideal way to live. And so anyways, I was telling her, as she's going through this, it's better, instead of putting it up like, well, I'm going to deal with this at the end of the semester, because it's not likely you'll make it that long. Just go ahead and hit it head on. Throw the full pity party if you have to. Get out the hat, balloon streamers, make a cake, and then deal with it. Sit in it. Just be present with whatever it is so you can get through it. And then you'll be able to move forward. Clean up your pity party, put it all away, and move forward. And it's not always that you're having a pity party, but the heaviness of life can sometimes get too heavy. You're not supposed to be dealing with all of that on your own. And so reach out to somebody, but really go through it directly. Don't try to sideline it. Don't try to get away from it. Just hit it head on. You'll be in it for a shorter period of time, and the outcomes will be more favorable, in my experience. Another that I really, really love, and I'm so keen on this, and I really do live this, and I've done it a lot in a work environment. That's a lot of lead up. And anyways, this is assume positive intent. So I think in human nature, it's often the case that we would assume first negative intent, like that person's out to get me, or they did this on purpose. And I mean, like, even in the most benign example, driving, right? Somebody cuts you off. You're like, what an idiot. Oh my gosh, they're not paying attention. They risked my life, all of which may be true, right? They're just driving around like a jerk. Or what if they just got a phone call and devastating news that they didn't know how to handle and are so clouded by the grief and chaos that's just trying to get over to where they need to go so they can go and deal with the situation. Or what if they were running late to work because they got a call from a doctor with news that they weren't prepared to navigate? I mean, you just don't know, right? Like, I think we navigate the world better when we're gentle with others and appreciating that they might be going through something greater than we're understanding about them at that time. And so with that, again, is this notion of assuming positive intent. And so I use this a lot in my work environment, and it does materially change how I feel about situations. So even if I know someone has been calculating in their behavior before, or they're really trying to leverage or get away with something, manipulate, whatever that might look like, if I assume positive intent, what is the outcome? So let's say, for example, someone had called out from work, I'm not feeling well. I'd have staff members who'd come to me and go, that person's not sick, right? Like, they were at this party last night, they got drunk, and they just didn't want to come into work because they weren't feeling well. Okay, well, who cares? Honestly, like, really, who cares? Good for them, they're taking care of themselves. Or maybe they just needed a mental health day. And if they want to tell me that, that's great. But if they don't, that's okay too. I am not going to assume that they're out to somehow work the system or pull one over on me, even if that is truly their intention. I'm going to go through my head and say, well, what if they've just got too much on their plate, and if they were to come into the office, they wouldn't be bringing their best to the job, so they've got PTO, take it, stay at home, take care of yourself. Maybe they'll come back tomorrow better refreshed, better able to navigate all of the demands of the job, and we'll all benefit from that. So this is a positive outcome. Or if someone makes an error at work, I don't sit there and think, what an idiot, this person obviously doesn't care anything about their job, because I don't believe that at all. I don't believe people come into work with the express intention of trying to suck it up as hard as possible. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? But it is common human behavior to start going there and like thinking those things, but what value has that added? So instead, I think to myself, gosh, they must have something really heavy going on. They didn't do this on purpose. And so when I do assume positive intent, it changes the way I process the information that I actually receive, what is actually happening. And it allows me to see this from a much more human perspective, which allows me to give them grace and mercy, whichever is warranted at the time. And it changes the outcome overall because I am completely at peace. I have never, ever felt taken advantage of or onced over or regretted giving someone the assumption of positive intent. I have, however, felt bad on occasions where prior to this understanding, when I assumed negative intent and then found out there was actually way more to the story and there was something really legitimate going on that had pulled this person off from performing at their best, or someone behaving in a way that was contrary to their prior character or behavior. And so I find assuming positive intent to be a wildly helpful strategy in navigating relationships, whether it be, again, interpersonal, at home, with my kids, my husband, or colleagues at work and strangers on the street. So I would encourage you, assume positive intent. You will not regret it. You can always rewrite a story in a positive reframe from a much more human perspective that will allow you to have complete peace about giving someone grace or mercy, again, whichever they might need in that situation. And so I encourage you to do that. And then another that I just absolutely love. So this is from the movie Stuart Saves His Family, which is an odd and peculiar mid-late 90s movie. And in the movie, Stuart Smalley he has a public access television show where it's all about positive affirmations, and he's looking in the mirror. It's Al Franken doing his Stuart character that he used in Stuart Smalley, that he used in Saturday Night Live. And he has his positive affirmations that I'll say into the mirror. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. It's funny, I've seen that movie a handful of times, but most of them are way more than 20 years ago. Probably 25 is the most recent. But in that movie, He's navigating a family full of addicts with varying addictive behaviors. Dad is an alcoholic, mom is a codependent, brother is a disastrous, drug user, and it's just everybody in his family. He's the only one who's trying to like work through more or less Al-Anon steps to not become like his very addictive prone family. I relate to that at a high level. Definitely navigated addiction within my family. And did not want to repeat those patterns. I do have those patterns of behavior. I've not used them in the same trajectory. I don't drink alcohol. I've never done drugs. And so it's different, but I could still fall into bad habits and behaviors, as I said before, why I use HALT and why that's important. But one thing that he says in particular, and I definitely think this is valuable. He says, it's easier to put on slippers than carpet the world. And what he's saying is you have to take care of yourself and stop trying to fix everyone else around you. And that doesn't mean you don't positively influence those around you or you don't support those around you, but you don't make it your job to fix their problems, right? You can support them, you can come alongside them, but you don't make it your problem to fix. And I think I did a lot of that when I was younger. Again, my dad was an alcoholic, and he struggled with addiction and mental health issues his whole life, and certainly all of my life in overlap with my dad. And I love my dad tremendously. And as I previously said, he's gone on to be with the Lord. But it was hard to not want to try to fix my dad, because it's a natural inclination. You see a problem, you want to fix the problem. I wanted to fix the problem. I wanted to help my dad be well, but my dad had to want to be well. And it's very sad that he left us at 61 because he didn't, or I guess 60 or 61. I never remember that accurately. 61. It wasn't necessary. He didn't have to die so young. But he lived a life of recklessness in this cycle of addiction. And so hearing that, and I've listened to that like phrase in my head numerous times since. It's easier to put on slippers than carpet the world. It's the same. My husband and I have been recently going through a marriage Bible study, and it's awesome. I mean, we're not in a position right now where there's like conflict or strife or whatever, but again, filling things in the toolbox. So no matter who you are or where you're at, you're going to find yourself at some point in a position of struggle, strife, or chaos. And so how much better off we'll be that we have resources in our toolbox that we can call upon when those situations do arise. We can use them as resources to navigate that more effectively. And so one of the things they were talking about was, when you're in your marriage, what you do is you draw a circle around yourself and you fix everything in the circle. It's tempting in a relationship, marital in particular, to want to fix your spouse, but you won't. What you can do is control you, right? And like, that is the only thing that I can control. I have no control over anybody else. Even, your kids, when you're raising them when they're young, you don't really control them. You have influence over them, and hopefully it's positive, but you ultimately can't control them. And so what you have to do is leverage the influence that you have, and most importantly, fix you. I can control my behaviors. I can control my perspective. I can't control the circumstances all the time, but I can control how I view those circumstances. I can control what I do with those. I can react or I can respond. I prefer to respond. And so I'm going to fix the things in the circle. I'm going to put on my slippers rather than think the whole world needs to be carpeted. And I'm going to proceed through life in that regard. And so those are just a handful of things that I've collected along the way in life, filling my toolbox. Strategies to navigate life well, and they've been really helpful. So hopefully something in there will be helpful to you, but I'd love to hear if there's anything in particular you've come across that you found really helpful, because I always love to add additional tools to that toolbox. So throw it in the comments, send me a message. Love to hear from you. Thanks. Come back again and I'll tell you another story.